Welcome to the Not Yet Titled Podcast, Episode 1. I'm your host, Ken.
And I'm the co-host, Shane.
All right, so what do we have on the agenda for this episode? Why are we doing a podcast and obstacles that we might face? So why are we doing a podcast?
Because we're bored?
Boredom? I agree.
I've always wanted to do a podcast, so this has worked out with you wanting to do a podcast.
Yeah, it's something different. It's a challenge.
Yeah, getting a lot of pieces together. We don't know. Still trying to figure out the pieces, to be honest. What are some of the first things that we had to go through there, Ken?
First, I guess logistics is the big thing. Making it work, and then figuring out a format, a title, which is a whole nother topic, really. I mean, there was a slew of titles, right? I mean, what were a few of them? I know we one of them was not really friends podcast.
Not really friends. Gosh, I wanted to do a podcast about nothing, but that was taken. Don't know what the rules are on taking podcast names, because some of them that we were looking up didn't have they haven't had an episode in like 3 years, so I don't know if those come back into public domain at some point. And then we just kind of accidentally fell into this Not Yet Titled Podcast, which wasn't even on the list. We just kind of put it in our Excel sheet for notes and things that we would do, and it just kind of worked.
Yeah, it was a placeholder. Then that kind of grew on us, I think.
Yeah. So, well, we got one thing off the list, right? We got the title.
We have a title for now. I guess the other thing is, logistics. We're kind of trying to figure out the format as we go, right? We don't want it nailed down to just a specific format. Like, we want to cover lots of topics, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas in mind. I'm a huge movie buff, so I'm really into movies, so we'll probably be talking about movies a lot, especially today. We both enjoy playing video games, so probably have some video game conversations.
So I think that's the one thing we have in common. We both love games. You love movies. I like movies. I don't love them, but I love music. So I think we kind of have both sides of the coin that way, you know?
I love music too. I don't listen to as much music anymore as I used to, but still a fan of the old stuff. Still go to concerts. I'm not too old yet.
Old yet. Okay, so I mean, I think that's a lot of it is our format. It's kind of going to be evolving as we go. But basically movies, gaming, music, popular culture, would you say?
Yeah. Anything that comes to mind, whatever we can think about, we might talk about it. Who knows?
We do have some other guests and stuff like that lined up as well.
Right. And then, as we grow, as our audience grows, maybe they can pitch ideas towards us and make the whole process a lot easier when we start running out of ideas.
Right. And we do have the option to, these are obviously pre-recorded, but we do have the option to live stream as well. And you get more, listener participation that way.
So my question to you, Ken, is we were creating a podcast. It was really your idea, and you just happened to ask the right person who wanted to do a podcast. And I don't think you actually knew I wanted to do one.
I did not know.
So what are some things that you actually had to what did you look into for the podcast? I forget. I'm a terrible co-host here. I don't know the name. Podbeam. We're going through Podbeam.
Podbeam is the company. Yeah.
And why did you ultimately choose them?
Honestly, they have no limits. I mean, as far as there are only a couple companies, is my understanding, that are kind of the four front runners. I can't remember what the other one's called. I think it's Podsprout or something like that. And then Podbean, and those two really are the kind of the two leaders in the industry. And it came down to the services they offered for the cost. The other one was quite a bit more, and they kind of had the same services and the same customer satisfaction, that kind of thing. But it's what they offered us, what they could do for us.
So with Podbeam, if someone wants to listen to our podcast, other than us obviously providing just our friends links to the podcast, how can people find us online?
So short version is, I'm trying to find the actual site here, but so they distribute our podcast to other platforms. So for example, whatever we decide. So they host it, they provide all the back end, but then they distribute it. It's an RSS feed to Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, the Podbean app, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, a ton of them. I mean, there's like 10 or 12 different platforms that they distribute to, but our podcasts are hosted by them.
Okay, that's very cool. I don't know if I have any more questions about the podcast. We got a couple logos coming down the pipeline. Well, sure, we'll have merch. We got all these fans right now listening. We're gonna have merch. We're really trying to retire off this podcast, so if you guys could just buy our stuff,
that'd be awesome. We do have a website, by the way. The website is www.notyettitled.com.
Wow, very clever. I wonder where we came up with that name. Very good. That's a very good name there.
And that does, so when the podcasts are posted, they'll all be there. All the information will be there.
Very nice. So I know that, did you have anything else to add about really making a podcast or trying to come up with a podcast? Anything podcast related that I maybe didn't bring up or ask a question about?
Other than that, no. I mean, we do have Facebook, Twitter set up. Those are, I think our Twitter's Not Yet Titled Pod. Can't remember the Facebook, but it'll all be on the website. We have
like a producer or social media expert handling all that. Is that correct?
Yeah. Producer Brittany.
I like it. Okay. Well, if that's all you got, I kind of have a question for you that I know is a little unscripted here. So one of the games I play a lot, and as probably the rest of the world is, I play Call of Duty Warzone. I can't get enough of it. I'm always playing it. You can see how many. Actually, don't look at the time played that I have in that game because it's really sad compared to other games that get neglected. They just brought out this expansion pack. I don't know if you heard about it. You can now play as either Rambo or
John McClane.
John McClane in Die Hard, which is actually pretty cool. But my question to you is, what action star would you like to play in a video game?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe that's a tough one. I mean, it's either Rambo. I mean, you got Schwarzenegger maybe and Terminator. I don't know. That's a tough one, actually.
It had to be Terminator, right? If you had a Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, no, it had to be Terminator. Yeah,
it had to be Terminator 2, Arnold, right?
1 or 2, yeah. I mean early on, yeah.
I'd like to play John Wick. I think that would be cool.
I'm trying to think if there are any. I mean, because you're talking specifically action here. Yeah, no. I mean, it'd have to be Schwarzenegger. It'd have to be.
I would also take, which we might discuss a little later here, but I would also like Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon. I would play him.
That's not a bad one. Yeah,
I would play Lethal Weapon video game. Sign me up.
Well, if Lethal Weapon came out in 2010, there may be a video game, but games, because I mean that movie's older, right? That's early 90s.
So we're talking about Lethal Weapon?
Yeah.
So doing some research on our topic later today about top 80s movies growing up.
So that was
it actually came out in the 80s.
Oh.
The first two came out in the 80s. Okay. Which I guess I didn't really know that, and actually looking through kind of 80s website and trying to see what movies came out in the 80s. There were some movies I thought did come out in the 80s, but actually were very early 90s. And, as we go through, I think what's going to be really fun is we got about an age gap of about 7 or 8 years.
Probably somewhere around 8 years. Yeah.
Because the one thing I look forward to is seeing, we're going to talk about our top 80s movies today, right, and just kind of seeing where you're at compared to where I'm at, because you were older in the 80s than I was. So I feel like I'm probably going to pick more
late 80s
kid-related movies, teen-related movies compared to
right. So
you're probably going to pick all action movies,
right? Well, and that's kind of the thing when I was going through and kind of thinking about it. I'm like, okay, it's probably going to be different than your list simply because, like, I remember even some of the early. I was pretty young in the early '80s, but I remember some of the action movies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Whereas you probably some of the ones like, going way early '80s. Some of them you probably don't even remember.
I mean, I probably watched a lot of the action ones, when I was
After the
old enough
fact.
for my parents to let me watch. I mean, I
Right.
remember watching RoboCop when I was a kid. I remember quoting a line. I don't remember what swear word was used, but when the dude's melted with acid, he says some kind of swear word, which I repeated verbatim, and my dad sent me to my room, which is like, okay, you're gonna, get mad at me for saying a cuss word, but not watching this ultra violent movie, which, if you think about it, like RoboCop that is not a movie you want your kid watching at all. And
No.
that's just an 80s thing. Like, that was no big deal letting your kids watch those kind of movies.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, that was really kind of groundbreaking too for that time. I mean, that was like ultra violent, like ultra, like aggressive. Like I don't know what the right word for it is, but I mean it was very aggressive for the early '80s.
Yeah. I remember not being able to watch when Murphy got pretty much obliterated, dismembered by the gang members.
And that was really early in the movie too, was it not?
Yeah, I just don't think that movie was just so violent. Like, that was just
That was its selling
just
point.
like, I can't think of another 80s movie that was that violent. Probably, nothing mainstream. I would say RoboCop was probably mainstream. I'm sure you can get some really bad horror movies.
I don't know if RoboCop was really. I guess it was mainstream though. I mean, it was pretty mainstream. I mean, it was. I do remember it was. I mean, that was its selling point. Is it was ultra violent, right? Like,
yeah, RoboCop. Yeah, I mean that whole franchise, right? They had like 2 other movies, a remake, a TV series, which I remember trying to watch, but I don't think it lasted very long.
I don't think even any of the sequels really came anywhere near what the original was, right?
Right.
I mean,
but RoboCop's so popular nowadays. I'm just actually surprised it just didn't really. It seemed to kind of fizzle in the 90s.
It has like a cult following, right? Like, so I mean, because when it came out, it wasn't really that big of a movie, if I remember right. Like, but I mean, it kind of grew a cult following over time, right?
Yeah, I think so. I work with someone who is a huge RoboCop fan, so I didn't actually even mean to go on a RoboCop tangent, or do I have it written down anywhere in my notes? We just started talking about RoboCop. I play a RoboCop video game. I'd play almost any video game. I probably would hate most of them, but I would play them.
All right, so back to topic. So top 5 '80s movies. We'll go a little bit deeper in detail on this as far as like sequels, which ones were better, which ones were worse, any casting or plot changes, director visions, that kind of thing, and how they influenced you. But right off the bat, let's go right to you. What's your top 5 '80s movies?
Top 5 '80s movies, and I'm curious how many we have that we share. So I'm gonna go probably worst to last, which there's not really a worst one. It's a top 5.
So we're gonna go worst to best. You go. Give me your number 5, and I'll give you my number 5.
So I got my little short list here, and I would have to say my number 5 would be Die Hard.
Okay. See that that's a good one. Didn't make my list though.
Interesting. I thought if anything, Die Hard would have made your list.
It almost did. But I went with, I went out on a limb on this one because I do really think this is a great movie. Raising Arizona, the Coen Brothers movie. Nick Cage.
I've seen a lot of movies.
Nicolas Cage, Holly Hunter. It's a great movie. Coen Brothers movie. It's really funny. It's different. It's different. I mean, it's like any other Coen's Brothers movie. It's a good movie.
What's shocking to me is, I guess I didn't know the Coen Brothers made movies in the 80s.
I think it was.
I'm going to put that up on my list.
It had to be very early in their career. I mean, very early. Because it came out in like 87, 88, I think. I mean, Nick Cage was pretty young, and but
Was it weird yet?
well, no, he was still weird, yeah. But I mean, it's a good movie. Like definitely worth a watch.
Okay, I might put that on my short list. Got a couple days off here before I go back to work, and well, now you really piqued my interest in watching that movie. So that's going to happen
It's worth
soon.
the time. It is.
So I'll have you lead in with the number 4 pick for you.
All right, my number 4. Also, this is really early '80s. Blues Brothers, the original.
Okay,
Belushi, Aykroyd.
I have seen the Blues Brothers. I've seen it a couple times. I feel like maybe I haven't actually watched it in a full sitting, but I have seen it like pieces of it throughout time where I've actually seen the whole movie. I mean, growing up, I was a Dan Aykroyd fan. We'll get into that a little later with one of the 80s movies that I have on my list. Yeah, that is considered like a premier comedy, movie.
It was kind of a game changer. So keep in mind, I mean, it came out in, I think, 80 or 81, and there was nothing else like that at that time. You know what I mean? It was a game changer. So, I mean, it was very early 80s and still is a great movie. So you're number 4?
Yeah, I probably would not watch Blues Brothers again because I know I've seen it enough. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to rewatch it, but yeah, my number 4 is I did not number my movies here, so I'm marking them off as I go. I would have to say I watched the crap out of this movie as a kid. I probably wore the some kids probably don't know what a VHS is, but I probably wore the crap out of a VHS tape of this movie. But E.T.
That's a good movie.
And I finally got around to watching it maybe like a year or two ago. I hadn't seen that movie in probably 10 years. I had not seen that movie.
That was actually, and I'm a little bit older than you, but that was the first movie I ever saw in a theater.
I was thinking about first movies that I've seen in a theater. And right now I'd have to say, I was thinking about this for a future topic. So funny that you brought this up. I think my first movie in the theater was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I know my parents took me to that movie. I remember seeing it.
Yeah, that was very, very late 80s.
Yeah, I think that's an 80s movie.
It was 89.
I know I saw Forrest Gump, but I know that's later than...
It was probably early 94, 93, somewhere in there.
And I know my dad took me to this. This is a pretty popular... I think this is a TV series and a movie. I don't really know much about it. I think it was called like Alien Nation. Do you remember that?
Does not ring a bell.
I think it's called Alien Nation. I'm going to kill myself. Like it was just like aliens interact, these bald looking aliens with these weird old man spots. I could be completely inaccurate because I have not looked up a picture of these guys in forever, but, gosh, I cannot. I think there was some Alien Nation movie, but that could have been the first movie I remember seeing. But
that's probably that's not a AAA title. That's not a Spielberg, right? I mean,
I'm gonna have to look this up, and I'm gonna have to look it up and get the right titling for this. But yeah, my number 4, it would have been E.T. Like that movie, and it's really good. It's really good now. Like watching it now, it's really good. I was surprised at how well. I don't know. Some movies just they kind of age, and you just don't ever really go back to.
And another one that I'm going to, a little bit of a spoiler here, but it's not even on my list. I don't know if it's on yours, but kind of goes hand in hand with E.T. that just popped into my head is, and I think it's an 80s movie, is Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That's interesting that you brought that up. As big of a moviegoer I am, I actually finally, within a year, sat down and watched that movie from beginning to end. And I am glad I didn't watch that as a kid, or I saw pieces of it as a kid. I would not have handled the aliens at the end. Aliens scare me.
It was in that type of
form. In that form, aliens scare me. Nothing else. Some people have weird clown scare them, whatever. Aliens with the big eyes, anal probing dudes, like those guys scare the hell out of me.
I don't think they do anal probing anymore. I think that was that was an 80s thing. I think they're past that.
You think they got all their data, like all their anal data that they needed?
Yeah. That's
okay. I mean, I don't know why you would keep anal probing people after all these years. That would make sense.
I mean, once they find, that I think they're way past that. That's just a stigma.
Okay, okay. But yeah, the that movie is really cool, by the way. Was that on your list? Is it
No,
on your
no, it
list?
was not. But it was not.
Is
But
it a 80s movie?
when you said E.T., it brought that movie to mind because they're very similar. They're both Spielberg movies, right? I mean, it's similar to E.T., right?
Yeah, the whole is there life out there? I wonder when that movie came out. I think that might be a late 70s movie.
Is it? It could be. I don't know. Anyway, we can come back to that. But we're up
Of
to
course.
3. So your number 3.
Oh, so my number 3 is hold on, going back to my list here. I would have to say, see, now I'm starting to put movies in order of like how much I've seen them, how much I like still watch them to this day. I would have to say Lethal Weapon 2. Lethal Weapon 2 is better than Lethal Weapon 1.
You're gonna have to
by the
refresh
way.
my memory. What is 2?
Okay, Lethal Weapon 2. Here's all you need to know about Lethal Weapon 2. It's the one where, spoiler alert, for anyone who has not seen Lethal Weapon 2 yet, spoilers coming up here. They have that, like, I don't know if he's from Denmark or whatever, but he has that diplomatic immunity.
Oh, that's
He's
2.
like, diplomatic immunity.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Dave Barber shoots him and goes, "It's just been revoked." Probably one of the badassest lines ever in a movie.
Dude, that's 2. I thought that was like 3 or 4. Yeah, that's
It's 2.
No, that
I
is the
didn't-
best. That is by far better than the first one.
And speaking of Lethal Weapon,
Is that
all
also
4 of them are great.
Is that also the one where, if I'm not mistaken, he pulls the house down
Yes.
with his truck?
Yes, that is also the same one.
Okay. Yeah, that is
But,
the best one.
Yes. Yeah, Lethal Weapon, whole series is great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Best thing about the 80s movies, they've been out forever. You could probably, rent them.
Probably
like
on
$3.
Netflix.
Probably on Netflix, yeah. So what is your number 3?
So this is an odd one as well, but it's just a movie that I remember well from like when I was a kid. That's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It was just
Choice.
It was Matthew Broderick early on. It was different, I mean, it was different. Matthew Broderick. I can't remember the other guy's name. You know who I'm talking about, though.
He's been in a bunch of things. I know who you're talking about.
He's
I've
been
seen
in
him.
sitcoms and stuff since, but Jennifer Grey was in it, right? I mean, it was a great movie. Great movie.
Jennifer Grey. Is that the same girl that was in Dirty Dancing?
Yes, I think.
I think that's her. But I saw that movie. That movie's probably in my top 10. That's probably on the outskirts of my 5. I probably haven't seen that movie a bunch, but that movie used to run on TV like, I was poor, so we only had like basic cable, basic television, so that movie was on all the time and I would watch it.
No, yeah, that was a good one. I don't know. I just remember it like I don't know why, but it's one of those movies that just kind of stuck in my head, when I think 80s movies.
Right. All right, so now it's to you for the number 2 movie.
All right, number 2. This one was tough, but I am a sci-fi fan, but I'm not the biggest sci-fi. But I mean, it's got to be Empire Strikes Back, right? I mean,
I thought about putting Empire Strikes Back on my list. It's probably on my short list. I love Star Wars, but I didn't watch them religiously as a kid or even grown up. I like them more now as an adult and appreciate them more, but growing up, I didn't watch Star Wars movies. I just honestly, it wasn't my thing.
It's the first one I remember. Like I don't, because the original came out in what, 77. I was a baby.
Right.
Like I don't remember it. You know what I mean? Like I saw it later, obviously, but Empire I remember.
Doing my 80s research, the 2 sequels that followed it came out in the 80s, which I actually didn't know that. And I would think that I'd have to say, we could talk crazy Star Wars, but Empire Strikes Back is probably the best Star Wars movie I think that they've done, period. Not even close.
The best? Well, Return of the Jedi's up there.
Which one's the one where Luke is, "I'm your father"?
That's Return of the Jedi.
That's 2, right?
No, that's Return of the Jedi, isn't it?
Oh, Return of the Jedi is the best one then.
Yeah, no, it is the best one, yes.
That came out in the 80s too, though.
Yeah.
I think
well,
it did.
3 of the 4 came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
The only one that wasn't was the original that was in the late 70s.
What's the original one called? New Hope?
Star Wars, New Hope.
New Hope.
Yeah, that was like 77, I think.
And then Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi. Right?
No.
Or am I flipping them?
Man,
you're a sucker for the Ewoks. Is that why that one's your choice?
Hold on, there was four. Return of the Jedi was the fourth, right?
No, they're in threes. There's three early on, 70s, 80s, and then the 1, 2, and 3 were in the late 90s.
So yeah. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi so essentially what, 5, 6, and 7?
Yeah. So which one did you say you liked?
Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. I agree with you. That's the second one. That is also the best one. Agreed. But not in my top 5.
Not in your top 5. Okay.
No.
So that was my number 2. What's your number 2?
So this is tough. My number 1 and 2 are probably could flip on a yearly basis. But my number 2 is Batman with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Like, I was like the right age. I mean, I think I was like 7 or 8 when that movie came out. I already liked Batman and Robin. That movie was the bee's knees.
I'll be honest with you, I forgot about that one.
That's all right. Well, see, you would have been, I don't know. I mean, you'd have been 14 or so at the time. So I don't know if you were moving on to more serious movies or something. I don't know.
That was probably the best Batman, right? I mean, it's got to be Michael Keaton.
Is it the best Batman?
In Batman movie. The best Batman in a movie.
Michael Keaton is amazing. And I don't know if you know this or not, Ken, because you're probably not up to speed on movies. There is supposed to be a Flash movie coming out very soon. And Michael Keaton is reprising his role as Batman. I don't know if he's going to be Batman or just, Bruce Wayne in this. I'm seeing it. Shut up and take my money, no matter what.
Really? Like, I mean, he's got to be getting up there, right, in age. I mean,
he's got to be pushing 60, but I would also watch.
He's pushing 70. He's 69 years old.
Michael Keaton is not 69 years old. You're kidding me.
Born September 5th, 1951.
Wow. I didn't realize he was that old. I don't care. He will always be my Batman. He could play Batman again. There's even a comic revolved around Batman coming out of retirement. Shut up and take my money. You've watched Marvel movies. They know how to de-age people. I think DC could do it too.
Oh,
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
That's all.
And they'll make a boatload of money.
So what is your number 2 movie?
Well, we covered my number 2. It was Empire.
Did we cover your number 2?
Yeah.
Are we on the number 1?
We are on the number 1.
Now I'm curious if we have the same number 1. It's Ghostbusters.
No, it's not. I was thinking, dude, Ghostbusters didn't even make my list. Did not. It's a good movie, but it didn't even make my list.
Wow.
But I see where you're going with the Aykroyd thing earlier, though.
Okay. Yeah, I was all about Ghostbusters in the 80s. I think the second one came out. It was poorly received, but as a kid, don't care. It was still awesome. Can't wait for the new Ghostbusters movie this year, which is supposed to be a somewhat continuation of the first 2. So I'm pretty thrilled about that.
Yeah,
I will not be available that night when it comes out.
That's kind of where I think the age thing comes in, because I think Ghostbusters was a little, I was a little bit older.
Yeah, but see, Ghostbusters came out in 82 or 83. So I was born. So I grew up, it was already out on VHS. I'm watching it as a kid. I mean, that would hit up your alley, right when it came out. You would have been the age that I started discovering Ghostbusters, I would imagine.
See, my number 1 is just about 2 years after that.
And what is it?
Back to the Future.
I actually left Back to the Future off my list. I really like the Back to the Future series, but considering we just rewatched that one recently, a couple within a year or so, and I didn't remember a lot of stuff. That I didn't watch that movie religiously, but I love the first two. The third one's okay, but my wife will tell you that it's awful and doesn't count. But I absolutely love the first two Back to the Futures, but they did not make my list. It was just they were. I have it here too. I have it listed. Like that was the one I cut out. So it'd probably be like my number 6.
You only love the first two?
I mean, yeah, the Western one. Come on, that wasn't that great.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't as good as the first one. No. Second one was eh. First one was the best by far. By far.
Yeah. I mean, the second one had hoverboards, which I always wanted, and then they had to have the Cubs winning the World Series, but no one likes that. And you know, if you want to get to know your host, I believe we're both Cardinal fans, right? We don't like the Cubs.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Cubs suck. Actually, if you're a Cubs fan, you can just turn off now. We just prefer not to have you as a listener by any means.
As a matter of fact, go ahead and block us.
Yeah, just go ahead and block us. We'll eventually have all our portals up to where you could block us, so you don't have to hear us talk bad about your team. All right. Well, hey, that was a successful top 5. We'll probably be doing more of those because I love top 5 lists. They are very fun.
Yeah, we've got a lot of them planned, I think. Kind of, short, quick top 5s coming up. I mean, we've got them planned for everything: music, movies, TV, and the list goes on.
A little behind the scenes action. We have a little spreadsheet that we add things to. I already went in and put the 90s, the O's, and the 10s for future discussions. But yeah, I would say, unless you have anything to add, I would say that kind of wraps up our top 5. Episode 1 and top 5 80s movies.
Yeah, I believe so. That pretty much does wrap it up. So again, thanks for listening to Not Yet Titled Podcast, episode 1. That'll do it. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.